Students, welcome to the second module of the chapter, the open window. Now, let's go back to our last module. Try answering these questions. Why is Frampton in this house? Who has given Frampton the letters of introduction? Is Frampton excited about meeting the people he is visiting? What kind of a person was Frampton? So now let us begin today's lessons. We stopped where Vera was cooking up stories and telling Mr. Frampton some kind of stories about the open window. Now let's see what happened next. She stopped talking with a little shiver. It was a relief to Frampton when the aunt entered the room with a series of apologies for being late. I hope Vera has been amusing you, she said. She has been very interesting, said Frampton. I hope you don't mind the open window, said Mrs. Sappleton briskly. My husband and brothers will be home directly from shooting, and they always come in this way. They have been out for snipe in the marshes today, so they'll make a fine mess over my poor carpets. She rattled on cheerfully about the shooting and the scarcity of birds. To Frampton, it was all purely horrible. He made a desperate but not very successful effort to turn the talk to a less miserable topic. But he saw that Mrs. Sappleton was giving him only a part of her attention. Her eyes were constantly straying past him to the open window and the lawn beyond. The doctors agree in ordering me complete rest. They have asked me to avoid any excitement or too much physical exercise, he said. So, uh, Vera told that her aunt's husband and her brothers had gone through this window and they died, and still Mrs. Sappleton believes that they would come back through this window. That is what Vera told Mr. Frampton, and he really believed it. And when Mrs. Sappleton came, he was finding it a relief because he wanted to get rid of all these tragic stories. He did not like to hear the tragic stories, so he thought he would get a relief when Mrs. Sappleton came. But when Mrs. Sappleton came, it became more worse. She was continuously talking about her husband and the shooting and all the birds, all those things. Mr. Frampton was really frightened to hear all this. He did not want it. He was feeling very horrible. He tried to change the topic, but in vain. Always Mrs. Appleton talked about the same thing, and she was paying only half attention to him. She was constantly paying attention to the open window because when her husband comes back, she knew that they would be coming in a mess, and she did not want them to make a mess over her carpet. That's why she was continuously giving attention to the open window. So, Mr. Frampton was growing more and more frightened to hear the stories. He was feeling horrible. So, he wanted to change the topic. That's why he told her, the doctors agree in ordering me complete rest. The doctors have told me complete rest. They told me don't not to be too much excited or don't take too much of physical exercise and all. No, said Mrs. Appleton in a voice which only replaced a yawn at the last moment. Then she suddenly brightened into alert attention, but not to what Frampton was saying. So Mr. Frampton was continuously talking about his disease so that she would change the topic, but still she was not at all interested in that. She said just casually, she was not paying attention, she was yawning. Here they are at last, she cried, just in time for tea. And don't they look as if they were muddy up to the eyes? So her husband and brothers were coming back. They had actually gone for hunting. But this frightened Frampton a lot. He saw her looking in through the window, and let's see what happened. Frampton shivered slightly and turned towards the knees, but the child was staring out through the open window with horror in her eyes. Feeling a shock of nameless fear, Frampton swung round in his seat and looked in the same direction. In the deepening twilight, three figures were walking across the lawn towards the window. They all carried guns under their arms, and one of them were additionally burdened with a white coat hung over his shoulders. A tired brown spaniel kept close at their heels. Noiselessly they neared the house, and then a hoarse young voice chanted out of the dusk, "I said, Bertie, why do you bound?" So it was the same thing what this girl told, Vera told. So what did Mr. Frampton think? When these three people were coming, he could not see them clearly, but he was seeing figures in twilight. Twilight means the light when the sun is going to set, the red color light. That is called twilight. So in the twilight, he could see only the figures. So what did he think? He thought that they were ghosts, and he ran around. He ran out. Frampton grabbed wildly at his stick and hat and ran. A cyclist coming along the road had to run into the hedge to avoid imminent collision. "Here we are, my dear," said the bearer of the white coat, coming in through the window. "Fairly muddy, but most of it's dry." "Who was that who dashed out as we came up?" "A most extraordinary man, a Mr. Nuttall," said Mrs. Sappleton. He could only talk about his illness, and went off without a word of goodbye or apology when you arrived. One would think he had seen a ghost. "I expect it was the spaniel," said the niece calmly. "He told me he had a horror of dogs. He was once hunted into a cemetery somewhere on the banks of the Ganges by a pack of stray dogs, and had to spend the night in a newly dug grave with the creatures grinning and foaming just above him, enough to make anyone lose their nerve. Fantastic stories at short notice was her speciality." So these people came and they told, like, "See, we are fully muddied up, but it's dry, no problem." But who was the man who ran away when he saw us? So this lady told that, "I don't know, it's a very extraordinary man. He was just talking about his illness, and see, when you people came in, he went out without even saying a goodbye. He ran out as if he had seen a ghost." So at that time, this girl told that maybe it was because of Spaniel. Spaniel was their dog. I think it was the dog, because one day he was hunted by a pack of stray dogs. Stray dogs means dogs which is walking here and there in the streets, street dogs. So by a stray dogs, and he ran into a grave. And grave means what? The place, the grave, the hole where we bury the dead people. So he had to spend a whole night in a cemetery. So that's why he is afraid of these dogs. He's very much frightened of these dogs. That's why I think he has got this nerve disease. See, and the last line says that fantastic stories at short notice was her speciality. Within a very little time, she would cook up stories. That was her speciality. Again, she made a story here. She made one story for Mr. Frampton and another story for her aunt and the other people there. See, she was very cunning girl. So that's it. Now these are the self-check questions. Try answering these questions. Now this is your TMLA, page number 99 of your course book, Comprehension A, rearranging the sentences. Try to do this. That's all. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.